These past several days have really made us feel like spring is on its way and we can't wait. Longer days, the sun shining, warmer temperatures, and the flowers starting to pop up out of the ground. Spring is almost here. I can feel it. There's a change of seasons. Just like we've already experienced for the past week and a half, changing from the season of ordinary time to the liturgical season of Lent. And we've seen several changes, just like we have with the change of winter into spring. From ordinary time to Lent, we're seeing a change in the sanctuary space. There's less in the sanctuary space. There's an emptying, an almost desert-like sense in the sanctuary. We're also changing our liturgical colors from green for ordinary time to what most people will call purple in Lent. But my dear friends in Christ, if we look more closely at how the Church identifies the color, we'll understand an even greater theological truth. For the Church, the liturgical color for Lent isn't purple, it's violet, and a particular kind of violet. It's Roman violet. Not because it's a flower, although what's important to remember is the color violet does certainly refer to the flower. And it refers to that flowering that should be happening in our hearts, the spiritual flowering, as you and I are preparing through self-denial and self-sacrifice to unite ourselves to the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, and to Christ who sacrifices himself on the cross. That through that, we have the flourishing and the blossoming of the spiritual life of Christian discipleship. And we experience too a daily resurrection, a dying to self, and a rising to new life by having put on the new man, as St. Paul says, by having put on Christ. So this violet color, in particular in Lent, is a Roman violet. The Roman violet differs from the royal violet that we saw and wore during the season of Advent. The royal violet pointing to King David and the coming of the Messiah, the King of Kings. The Roman violet, though, has a tinge of red in it, like the blood of Christ. Next time you're at Mass, see if your church is able to have that different color of vestment. Not every church can, and that's understandable. But nevertheless, traditionally, the color for Lent would be a Roman purple. So, yes, it's a purple, but it's tinged with red to remind us not only of the royalty of Christ, but also of what he sacrificed, that we can be a kingly people, that we can be a people made peculiarly God's own, that we can be a people saved by his blood. Saints of the making. Pay attention to these differences and to these unique elements of the liturgical season of Lent, just as you're paying attention to the elements of the season of spring as it's coming upon us. And my friends in Christ, as you pay particular attention to these differences and to these changes and to these distinctions, remember that God is calling that distinction and change in your heart and soul, and in my heart and soul too. Let's allow those distinctions to take place, my dear friends of Christ, by making space for grace.